Good evening and welcome. I'm Roy Blitzer, and our show is Ask Dr. Business. The purpose of our time together is to give you information and insight that will help make your work life more exciting and interesting. The desired outcome is you're going to take this advice and become a happy and more satisfied employee. This evening, our series on jobs that have long commutes is ending. This is our final in the series. And typically, we have a guest that joins us each week, but welcome to live television. This evening, my guest unfortunately could not show up. It turns out her commute was so long that she realized that if the show ended at 9 o'clock, she would be unable to get home in time to get a decent sleep to get back to her office by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So I'm here by myself, and I still would like to hear from you. So you can call in with a question about what it's like to have a long commute, because my evening tonight is going to give you a summary of what our other guests have said. The phone number here is 650-856-1491. Well, we did have a series of about 6 to 8 people who came on the third week of every month, the third Thursday, and talked about their long commutes. Before the series began, I did a little research in terms of the Bay Area commutes. So here are some factoids. The average Bay Area commute is 34 minutes. So that means that the people who commute to their jobs, the average is 34. That means there are a whole series that are before that and longer than that, and there are a whole series that are shorter. Also, of these commuters, half of them said that they would travel 45 minutes for the job that was perfect for them. So they wouldn't mind taking a job that had a 45-minute commute if the job was right. So those were two statistics that I began with. I also realized that the Bay Area is not one of those places, or San Francisco and the Silicon Valley is not the highest commute. Washington, D.C. has the longest commute time of any city, followed by Phoenix, Arizona, and believe it or not, New York City still has a long commute if you live in the suburbs and choose to take something besides public transportation. So what we're going to do, besides solicit your input, 650-856-1491, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the tips that the people that were on the show told us. The people that participated, someone was traveling all the way from Dublin, California to downtown Mountain View. Another colleague was traveling from the lower part of San Jose to the Oakland airport. A third person was traveling from Millbrae all the way to lower South San Francisco. And we had another colleague who was traveling all the way from Vallejo to San Francisco. And these are some of the pieces of information that they passed on that I will give to you. This is a summary session. First, everyone agreed that the worst day for a commute is Thursdays. For some reason, if you travel either on 580, 680, or 880, there are tons of trucks, and therefore the traffic was absolutely horrible. So the first tip was, if you can work at home, if you can coordinate and navigate the long commute and work from your home, pick Thursdays. It doesn't make for long weekends, but it may save on wear and tear and you and your car. So that was the first tip. The second, one of our colleagues came on the air and said to be sure that you have a comfortable and gas-efficient car. Now, not everyone can afford a Tesla or a BMW or a Jaguar, but you need to make sure that if you have a car and a long commute, you need to make it very comfortable. Some of my participants had backrests that they worked with, even if they didn't have a bad back. They made sure that a person in their company who was maybe doing some work with ergonomics would come to the car with them and make sure that they were sitting in the right place and the level was correct, so you were as most comfortable as you could be in your car. Next, one of the major tips was to make sure that you're constantly maintaining your automobile. The gentleman that was traveling from Palo Alto all the way to Hercules, California, had to get at least 4 new sets of tires every year. And that was something they had not considered when they were offering him the job, that his maintenance was going to be very high. It's not just the gas. It's the gas, the oil, the tires, the windshields. All of those things need to be maintained in a very religiously systematic manner. So those are the first big tips that I didn't know about. And if you'd like to find out more, please call 650-856-1491. Next, what do you do when you're in the car? There was a whole range of what some of our participants talked about. Many of the people that were on the show talked about books on tape. They all listened to something that was a book on tape that could help them. They weren't listening to novels. They weren't listening to autobiographies. They were listening to business-related books that they thought might help them professionally and that would give them some insight to what their jobs might be. Another set of our participants were basically conducting business. They were making phone calls, they were leaving messages, and they were somehow connecting with their place of operations. Now, this didn't come up, but I want to be sure that everyone is well aware that you need to have some kind of either hands-free or Bluetooth in your car, or else you'll get a $260 ticket for talking on the phone in the car. I've been told that even if you pull to the side and continue a conversation with your hand like this, you can get a ticket for that. So if you're picking a good car that's comfortable, try to get a car where you can put your cell phone on hands-free or your Bluetooth is operating all the time. This is a tip that I'll pass on. Check your Bluetooth and your availability of your phone before you leave every day. Because you may think it works, and the one day that you're not aware of it, you could get a ticket when it doesn't seem to be handling itself properly. Books on tape, business books, conducting business. Many of our colleagues make their own sound mix. They create a series of music audios that they listen to at different times, and they mix them up. One week they would listen to tape 1, next week they would listen to tape 2, and they would try very hard to create music that would keep them what I would call engaged in the road. So they would not fall asleep, so they would not get tired, etc. Of the people that were on the show, the average that they were waking up was about 5:30 in the morning. So they were up at 5:30. They would finish their toilette if they chose to do it in the morning. They were on the road by 6 or 6:15. According to the data that they told us, that if they were later than 7 o'clock, even the hour commute that they may have was now working into an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes. That you needed to be on the road before 7 o'clock to get to work at a decent hour and still be functional and alive. Another tip is caffeine. Every one of the people that was on the show talked about having a good, stiff drink of coffee in the morning before they left. Several of the people had done gym exercises. They'd get up at 5, go to the gym, make sure their routine was keeping them awake, and then they would go on the road with their coffee. So here we are. Please call. You can still call and ask me some questions. 650-856-1491. 1491. I would love to tease and give the phone number of the colleague that didn't show up because of the crazy commute, but I don't think that's fair, so I won't do that. Okay, another tip that I thought was very, very interesting. I think we have a caller. This is Dr. Business. How can I help you? Please tell us your name.
Hi, this is Alex.
Alex, please, what can I do to make this a good experience for you?
Hey, so I just moved to Rockland from the Bay Area, and I was wondering if you have any advice for someone with a long commute like mine.
Well, I guess the advice that I've been giving has been part of the show so far. How long have you done a dry run? That's the first thing I would do, is to do a dry run of how long it takes you to get from where you live to your office. Have you done that yet?
We have been doing that.
And how long did it take you?
It takes about 2 hours.
2 hours. And this is without traffic, just a regular?
Yeah, this is without traffic.
Okay, so I think the biggest tip that I will give you is to try to make sure that you're on the road way before the normal people start, maybe by 6:30. And I think that's a difficult chore because it requires an early morning wake up, but that's one piece of advice. And if you have a chance to try to do the commute on the weekend to see if you can calibrate the shortest amount of time it would take you, then you could measure when you think you could have off the right amount of time to get there. Does that help?
That does help. Thank you.
Okay, and if you continue listening and you have a chance, there are a few more things that the people who have been on the show before have given that I'm welcome to pass on to you. Best of good luck. And thank you. Good. Okay. Comfortable, caffeine, etc. One of our colleagues, the gentleman that drove all the way from Palo Alto to Hercules, always put in time to go to the bathroom. If you're on the road for that long a time and you're drinking coffee in the morning, you need to be able to figure that you may need a pit stop somewhere along the way. Find one that's the closest to the freeway that will let you go without any problem, and make sure that's the shortest amount of time that you can. So you need to be sure that you take care of your bodily functions and your commute, and you put that into the time frame. Next, one of the other people that was on the show suggested that you plan your first meeting in the morning after 9:30. In other words, even if you leave at 6:30 and you get to work at 8:15 or 8:30, you need to make sure that you provide enough time for an accident or a shift in the patterns to make all of your early morning appointments not that early. Try them at 9:30, and that would make it possible for you to attend all the meetings and not miss anything because of the commute. Please, I was very happy to have Alex call in, and you're welcome to call in as well. The phone number is 650-856-1491. I'm Roy Blitzer, Dr. Business, and we're talking about jobs with long commutes. This evening, because my guest is not here and could not attend, I'm giving a summary of what came on from the other participants in the 6 or 7 months that we've been running this series. Next, one of the other tips that I thought was very, very interesting was to make sure that your commute factored in not only some bathroom time, but time for an accident. One of the questions I asked was how many of you had experienced an accident at least once or twice a year on their commute. And half of the people had some kind of accident that basically delayed them even beyond the long commute. So factor that in as well. The other thing that I think is very, very important is if you're in the car and you're required to take any notes, don't do it. Try to avoid meetings and opportunities in the car that require you to do something with your hands besides keep them on the wheel. And that's very difficult because the person you're chatting with may not know that you're in the car. So you need to be very clear that you're talking from an area where you are not able to take any notes down, to write a number down, etc. Next, one of the questions that came up is, why did you take a job that had such a long commute? Did you know what you were getting into? Now, the data there was very interesting. All of the people that were asked. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, this is Dr. Business. How can I help you?
Hello, Dr. Business. I had a question for you. So I recently got into a little fender bender and lost access to my car. So I'm going to start biking to work. And I looked at the commute time for my bike, and it's going to be about an hour and 15 minutes going through the city. And so I was just curious if maybe you had any advice for me in that department.
Well, thank you for bringing that question up. I must tell you that you are a bold and brave soul. The first piece of advice I would give you is you need to be very fit. This is not a commute for a casual go around the neighborhood biker. That is a long commute that will require you to have your sensibilities and your route pre-scheduled. So you need to go and check for bike lanes. You need to be sure that you are leaving at a time where you're most likely to avoid a lot of traffic. The other advice I would give you is to buy a very expensive helmet. Most people have helmets, but they get the cheesy kind because they don't want to. It's very important that you get a good helmet. That's one thing. Next, prepare your route. And the other thing is, even though you're going to work, I would buy an orange or a red or a pink, what I would call, or fuchsia jacket that has sparkles on it, that is the kind of jacket that is good in the night, but you'll wear it in the day. It's very important that you make yourself visible. Those of my friends that do biking for hobbies always wear a jacket like that, even when they're doing the daytime work. Next, I would buy a little one of those mini saddlebags for your bike so that you will always have with you a cell phone, a notepad and paper, and some kind of extra communication if something happens to you on the bike. Those would be my initial suggestions, and make sure you're in great shape, because after a tough day of work, if you have to go home after an hour and a half, that is not an easy chore. And there's no shame wagon that you can stick your bike on if you're exhausted. You know, that's a very tough route. Does that help you at all?
That does help me.
Well, I want to wish you good luck. And for those of you that are listening, I want to remind you that a bike commute is a very environmentally healthy and appropriate way to get to work. But I think you need to listen to some of the stuff I've given you and be aware of what it's involved. And also buy a very expensive lock, because even though you're taking this bike into work and you have a safe place there, you may need to stop along the way, and you don't want to have your bike ripped off on your way to work. Best of good luck to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Roy.
Good luck. Well, so we talked about the people who had the long commute and why they did it. And most of the people felt that they took the long commute because the job itself was worth it. Some of the people who were younger and were experiencing the recession of 2008 took the job with the long commute because that's the only job they had. And they did need to work, and the decision of making a financial move to support yourself was worth being in the car a long time. the statistics for the long commute told me when I went to do some research that the longest most people have a big commute is 3 or 4 years. The gentleman that we had on the air that went from Palo Alto to Hercules had been doing that for 10 years. And he basically was very willing to take a job that didn't have a long commute afterwards. I asked what qualities would be most likely that you would need to have a long commute. And these are some of the adjectives that came up. You needed patience. You needed to be able to handle contingencies way beyond your control. So you needed to be patient and somewhat flexible, because there are so many things that can go wrong when you're in the car that you can't let road rage and your own personal frustration take over the good driving skills. The other quality they thought was very important was that you were very clear that you were making the choice for this commute. You were not being forced. And as an old career manager, I want everyone to know that's listening and watching that you're in charge of your career. If it's too much and too hard, then you need to be able to think of a way to make some changes, either by working home a few days or telecommuting from a different office site that your company might have to make it easier on yourself. Another quality they thought was very important was being organized. That with a long commute, you need to be organized to make sure that your activities at home are well taken care of. You need to be sure that you are prepared for the next day. If you're bringing your lunch, many of our people who are on the air made their lunches and froze them in little packets and just took them out each morning before they left. The other thing that I think is important quality to have is that you need to really be able to think on your feet. If you're in the car and people are asking you questions and you have to concentrate on the road, then you've got to be a quick thinker, because otherwise something will suffer. The other thing that's important is to do some research to see if you can get a companion. If you have someone you commute with, then you have a chance to do the diamond lane, and you can converse and talk about things that will keep you engaged and somewhat happy when you get to work. Another series of people went to work and then exercised because they were so wiped out from the commute that they went to work and did their exercise routine after they got there. Okay, qualities, we talked about that. Why people took the job, which is usually because the job was wonderful, it was helped their career, and they felt it was worth the time. Buying a good car, making sure that you took care of it. We tend to forget that tires get worn, windshields get nicked, and you have to make sure that your car is in good shape. The other thing that's very important when you're taking a long commute is to realize and let people know that you're doing this. If you never tell your boss or your colleagues that you have a long commute, they will be very intolerant. If you're late to meetings and you're not responding fast enough to questions, etc. So tell them that you have a commute, and then you will be able to at least gather a few sympathy pains when they hear that the Bay Bridge has had an accident and people are waiting there for 2 or 3 hours. Next, I think that if you have a long commute, you need to take care of yourself in other ways. Maybe a massage every week. Maybe figure out a way where you can take yourself to a nice dinner so you're not constantly getting yourself tense by being in the car. The other thing that came up is, what does the long commute do to your personal life? How does it help or hinder your life at home? Again, many of the people that had families tried to get the family to wait until they got home to eat. So they all tried to eat together. Those that were single or child-free came home and were not bothered by this interpersonally, but they had a hard time keeping friendships. Going out during the midweek, meeting people for a drink after work, that's very difficult if you are in a carpool or you're in a commute that's long. Next, one of the things that was most important is whether they would do this again. Would they take the long commute if they knew exactly what's involved? And again, half of the people decided that they would because the job was enriching and wonderful, and the other people said no, that the wear and tear on their emotional makeup and the travel situation was very difficult. Now, one of the things that we did not talk about on the air before is the Bay Area public transportation is not good. If you live in New City, New York, and you have to get to Manhattan, you can take a train. And you don't have to bother with any of the stuff that we would do. It was the same hour, but you can basically take advantage of the fact that someone else is doing the work. Now, the thing that I think is most important is that in your managing your career, the commute is only one of the things that you need to measure in terms of your criteria. How long are you willing to be on the road? The young colleague that called in about commuting by the bicycle, can you ride your bike to work? Is it possible? And then prepare around that. I'm hoping that this summary has helped you. We have a few minutes left. I want to thank my delightful crew. I want to let everyone know that we are on the air the third Thursday of every month, and I'm starting a new series. And that new series will be called First Jobs. So if you know anyone that's in their first job, please send them my way. If you know anyone that has a wonderful first job story, please send them my way. And I'll look forward to seeing you and a guest at that couch the next time we meet. Thank you very much. That's the end of our show, and best of continued good luck to you and your career.